There was a young man named Kareem who sat in his car outside the mosque after Maghrib prayer, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. He had just done something that took every ounce of courage he possessed, something he had been trying to do for the past 3 years but kept failing at. Tonight, finally, he had succeeded. He had completely removed a woman from his life, blocked her on every platform, deleted every message, erased every trace of her presence. The woman's name was Sarah, and she had been his closest friend since university. But that poor woman who had just been dragged out of Kareem's life was not what anyone would expect. She was not an ex-girlfriend, not a toxic influence, not someone who had wronged him. The truth was far more complicated and far more painful than anyone could imagine. To understand what Kareem had just done and why it had taken him 3 years of struggle, we must go back to the beginning, to when he first met Sarah in a statistics class during their second year of university. Sarah was brilliant, kind, funny, and easy to talk to. She sat next to Kareem during a group project, and they discovered they had similar interests and sense of humor. What started as a classroom acquaintance grew into a genuine friendship. They'd study together at the library, grab coffee between classes, text each other about assignments, eventually about life in general. For the first year of their friendship, it remained purely platonic on both sides. But somewhere during their 3rd year of university, something shifted for Kareem. He began to notice things about Sarah that went beyond friendship, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, the thoughtfulness in her advice, the comfort he felt in her presence. He was falling in love with her, but he never said anything because Sarah had made it clear from the beginning that she didn't believe in dating and wanted to stay focused on her education and career. Kareem told himself he could handle it, that his feelings would fade, that friendship was enough. So he remained her best friend while loving her silently. A situation that became increasingly painful as years passed. They graduated, both got jobs in the same city, and their friendship continued. Sarah would call Kareem when she had a bad day at work, would ask his opinion on major life decisions, would include him in her social gatherings. To everyone who knew them, they seemed like the perfect couple who just hadn't figured it out yet. But Sarah genuinely saw Kareem as nothing more than a dear friend, while Kareem was drowning in unexpressed feelings that grew stronger every day. The real crisis began when Sarah started getting serious marriage proposals from her family. She would tell Kareem about each potential match, asking his advice as her trusted friend. Each conversation felt like a knife in his heart. She would describe the men's careers, their families, their qualities, asking Kareem what he thought she should do. And every time, Kareem would swallow his own feelings and give her honest advice like a good friend should, dying a little inside with each word. It was during one of these conversations, 2 years after graduation, that Kareem realized he had to do something drastic. Sarah had just told him about a man named Ahmed who seemed perfect, good family, strong faith, successful career, kind personality. She was seriously considering accepting the proposal. "What do you think?" Sarah asked Kareem over the phone, her voice excited and nervous. "Should I say yes?" Kareem sat in silence for a long moment, his heart breaking. This was his moment to finally confess his feelings, to tell her he had been in love with her for years, to ask if there was any chance she could see him as more than a friend. But something held him back. Fear of rejection, fear of losing her friendship entirely, fear of making things awkward. "He sounds like a good man," Kareem heard himself saying, his voice hollow. "If you feel at peace about it, you should accept." That night, after hanging up with Sarah, Kareem broke down crying for the first time since he was a child. He performed ablution and prayed 2 units of prayer, then sat on his prayer mat and spoke to God with complete honesty. "God, I'm in love with a woman who sees me only as a friend. I've I've tried to make these feelings go away for years, but they only get stronger. She's probably going to marry someone else, and I don't think I can survive watching that happen. Please help me. Please guide me. Please show me what to do because I'm lost." As he sat in the quiet after his prayer, a thought came to him with startling clarity. It wasn't a voice or a vision, but an understanding that settled into his heart with the weight of truth. The woman he needed to remove from his life was not Sarah. It was the version of himself who was clinging to a relationship that was harming his spiritual and emotional well-being. The poor woman who needed to be dragged out of his life was his own nafs, his own ego and desires that kept him attached to something that was never meant to be. But understanding what needed to be done and actually doing it were two different things. Over the next year, Kareem tried multiple times to create distance from Sarah. He would decide to stop responding to her messages, would go a week or two with minimal contact, would tell himself he was finally moving on. But then Sarah would reach out with some problem or just wanting to talk, and Kareem would immediately respond, unable to maintain his boundaries. Sarah had ended up rejecting Ahmed's proposal and several others after that, saying none of them felt right. Each time she rejected someone, a terrible hope would rise in Kareem's chest. Maybe she was waiting for him, maybe she felt something too but didn't know how to express it. But whenever he would hint at his feelings or suggest they were more than friends, Sarah would quickly redirect the conversation or make a joke of making it clear she didn't see him that way. This cycle continued for 3 agonizing years after graduation. Kareem was now 27 years old, still unmarried, still orbiting around Sarah like a planet around the sun, unable to break free from her gravitational pull. Meanwhile, his own life was suffering. He turned down opportunities to meet other women because no one compared to Sarah. He neglected his relationship with God because he was too consumed with thoughts of her. He was physically present in his daily life but emotionally absent, always partly focused on when Sarah would next call or text. His mother noticed and worried. "Kareem, you need to get married. You're 27 now. Let me arrange meetings with some good families." But Kareem would make excuses, unable to tell his mother the truth that he was in love with a woman who would never love him back, and he was too weak to let go. The turning point came during Ramadan. Kareem had always been moderately religious, praying regularly but not with deep connection or understanding. But this Ramadan, feeling desperate and broken, he decided to truly dedicate himself to worship. He woke every night for tahajjud prayer, read Quran with translation, attended Taraweeh at the mosque, and spent the last 10 nights in extended supplication. One night during the last third of Ramadan, Kareem was in prostration during tahajjud, crying and pouring his heart out to God. He wasn't asking for Sarah anymore. He had finally accepted that she wasn't meant for him. Instead, he was asking for something deeper. God, please free me from this attachment that is destroying me. Please give me the strength to remove this woman from my life, not because I hate her, but because loving her is keeping me from loving you the way I should. Please replace this painful love with something better love for you. Contentment in your plan, peace in my heart. Please help me drag this version of myself out of my life so I can become who you created me to be. That prayer was different from all his previous prayers. It wasn't bargaining or begging for what he wanted. It was surrender, complete submission to God's will, an acknowledgement that he couldn't carry this burden alone anymore. The next day, Sarah called him excited about yet another proposal she had received. This man was different, she said. His name was Ibrahim. He was a doctor, very religious, and she felt genuinely interested for the first time. She wanted Kareem's advice as always. As Kareem listened to Sarah's excited voice, something shifted in his chest. Instead of the usual stabbing pain, he felt a strange calm. It was as if God was answering his prayer from the night before, giving him the clarity and strength he had been asking for. Sarah, Kareem interrupted her gently. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Okay, she said, her tone becoming serious, sensing something different in his voice. I've been in love with you for 5 years, Kareem said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Since our 3rd year of university, I stayed your friend hoping my feelings would change or that yours would develop, but neither happened. I've spent 5 years of my life emotionally unavailable to anyone else because I was holding on to hope with you. I can't do this anymore. It's not fair to either of us, but especially not to me. There was shocked silence on the other end. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice small. Kareem, I had no idea. I mean, I wondered sometimes, but I thought I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I know you didn't, Kareem said. You've been a good friend. But I can't be your friend anymore. Every time you ask my advice about marriage proposals, it destroys me. Every time we hang out, I'm hoping for something you'll never feel. I need to remove you from my life completely, not because you're a bad person, but because staying connected to you is keeping me from healing and moving forward. Can't we just... Sarah started, but Kareem gently cut her off. No compromise, no, let's just talk less, no, let's take a break and revisit this later. I need to cut this completely and cleanly the way you would amputate a limb to save a body. It's going to hurt terribly, but it's necessary for my survival. I wish you all the happiness in the world. I hope this Ibrahim is everything you deserve, but I can't be part of your life anymore. I understand, Sarah said, crying now. I'm so sorry, Kareem, for everything. Don't be sorry, Kareem said, his own tears falling. You were honest about your feelings from the beginning. I'm the one who chose to stay and hope for something different. That's on me, not you. Goodbye, Sarah. I'll make dua for your happiness. He hung up before she could respond, before his resolve could weaken. Then systematically he blocked her number, blocked her on every social media platform, deleted every message and photo, removed every trace of her digital presence from his life. It was brutal, painful, necessary. That's when he drove to the mosque for Maghrib prayer, and afterwards sat in his car shaking, overwhelmed by what he had just done. Part of him wanted to immediately unblock her, to apologize, to take it all back. But a deeper, wiser part of him knew this was the right thing, the necessary thing, the thing God had been preparing him to do through all those nights of prayer. The next weeks were excruciating. Kareem went through withdrawal like an addict giving up a substance. He would instinctively reach for his phone to text Sarah about something funny or interesting, then remember she was gone. He would see something that reminded him of her and feel the crushing weight of loss. He cried more in those weeks than he had in years. But he didn't break. Every time he felt weak, he would go to prayer, would open the Quran, would remind himself why he had done this. Slowly, gradually, the acute pain began to fade into a dull ache, and eventually into something manageable. 3 months after cutting contact with Sarah, Kareem's mother convinced him to meet a woman named Amira. He almost refused, he wasn't ready. He was still healing, but something made him agree to just one meeting. Amira was nothing like Sarah. Where Sarah was outgoing and talkative, Amira was quiet and thoughtful. Where Sarah was career-focused and independent, Amira valued family and faith above professional success. Initially, Kareem thought this meant they wouldn't connect. But as they talked, he discovered something surprising. With Sarah, he had always felt like he was performing, trying to be interesting enough, funny enough, worthy enough of her attention. With Amira, he felt comfortable being himself. Their conversations weren't about impressing each other, but about genuinely understanding each other's values and goals. When Amira asked him directly about his past, Kareem was honest. He told her about Sarah, about the 5 years of unreciprocated love, about the difficult decision to cut contact completely. He expected Amira to be put off by dishonesty, but instead she nodded with understanding. "That took courage," she said simply. "Most people stay in situations that harm them because leaving is harder. You chose your healing and your relationship with God over comfort and false hope. That says something good about your character." 6 months later, Kareem and Amira were engaged. Their relationship was different from what he had experienced with Sarah. It was mutual, it was intentional, it was built on shared faith and values rather than one-sided longing. For the first time in years, Kareem felt genuine peace about the future. On the night before his wedding, Kareem sat alone in his room and thought about the journey that had brought him here. He thought about Sarah, and for the first time he felt only gratitude, not for their friendship, but for the lessons that came from losing it. He had learned that sometimes the person you need to remove from your life is not someone who wronged you, but someone who occupies a space in your heart that should belong to God alone. He had learned that loving someone who doesn't love you back is not romantic sacrifice. It's spiritual self-harm. He had learned that the poor woman who most needed to be dragged out of his life was his own attachment to outcomes he couldn't control, his own ego that refused to accept reality, his own nafs that preferred familiar pain over uncertain healing. Most importantly, he had learned that God's plan is always better than our desires. He had wanted Sarah with every fiber of his being, had prayed for her, had convinced himself she was meant for him. But God, in his infinite wisdom, had protected him from a relationship that would have been built on imbalance and unfulfilled longing. God had closed that door firmly and painfully so that the right door could open. Years later, as Kareem sat with his children and watched his wife Amira teaching them Quran with infinite patience, he would sometimes think about that night when he finally found the courage to remove Sarah from his life. It had felt like dying at the time, like cutting out part of his own heart, but it had actually been the moment he truly began to live. This is the truth that needs to reach everyone holding on to someone who will never love them back, your special person. Just dragged a woman out of their life. That woman might be an actual person who doesn't reciprocate your feelings. Or it might be your own ego, your own stubborn attachment to what you think you need versus what God knows you actually need. Either way, the removal will hurt terribly. You'll doubt yourself, you'll be tempted to go back, you'll feel the acute pain of loss. But on the other side of that pain is freedom, healing, and space for God to bring you what He has always intended for you. Something better than what you were clinging to. Something that will fill your life with peace instead of constant longing. The poor woman being dragged out might be you, the version of you that settles for crumbs of affection, that accepts one-sided relationships, that mistakes intensity for love, that holds on to people who hold you back from your destiny. Let her go. Mourn her if you must, but let her go. And trust that God is removing her to make space for the person you're truly meant to become, and the love you're truly meant to receive.